Hello, everyone, and welcome to your favorite hospitality and events industry podcast, Two Chicks, Three Seats. We are super excited today to welcome two fellow podcasters and event professionals to the show. Sarah and TJ are from the Annenberg Presidential Conference Center at Texas A&M University, and they're also the hosts of Coffee Talk, which is a fun and informative video podcast that discusses event-related topics with real-life experiences from their work at the APCC. And one of the lines that I loved the most on their website says, "We are here to share, educate, and enlighten with what is going on in the events industry today, tomorrow, and yesterday." And I feel like that's amazing because that's what Rachel and I love to do as well. So we've found our Texas counterparts. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah and TJ. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So can you guys start by giving us a quick intro about your career backgrounds and role now at the APCC?
You're up first, dude.
Oh, okay. So I'm TJ. I am an event manager at the Annenberg. And my background, I'm kind of all over the place. I've managed events, catering management, supervisor, bartended for decades. So I've just kind of done a little bit of everything in the industry.
Awesome.
Decades.
Decades.
You started at 5.
I'm 106.
I always say that too. I bartended for decades and everyone's like, what?
It
I'm
feels like
almost
it.
20 years, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Sarah. I'm the director here at the facility. I've been in the industry, I don't even know how far back.
Decades.
Yeah, we'll say decades as well. I started out doing front of house planning and helping with marketing in one of my jobs, and then I started here in 2009 and learned the basics of the industry and then shifted to catering. And when I was in catering, we had high level expectations, which is probably why during our podcast you hear me talk so negatively about catering and my frustrations with people. And then I came back here and definitely like the facility side. I like being in the behind the scenes versus in the front of the house. So I definitely enjoy what we do around here and the people that we work with.
That's awesome. So lots of experience between the both of you. So great insight for your podcast and for our guests today. So
For our podcast too.
we love that, to have the experts on. So how about we start off by getting to know a little bit more about what events look like at the Annenberg Presidential Conference Center. So what type of events do you guys normally host in regular circumstances when we're not in this COVID world that we're in right now?
We do a lot of different types. Obviously, we stay away from weddings, as I'm sure you've heard, but there's classes, a lot of academic support, political events. We've had, I guess, the honor to host vice presidents and congressmen, congresswomen, different federal agencies. So yeah, dinners, banquets, conferences, all
sorts of things.
Yeah.
Performances. We have piano concerts.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Choirs.
Yeah.
Do you host a lot of like Texas A&M based college events, like local campus things, stuff like that?
Yes, I would say probably about 85% are. And we are associated with the Bush School of Government and Public Service. So a lot of what we do is with the Bush School and the complex out here, since we're attached to former President Bush's library. This whole complex kind of supports his foundation. So we do a lot of stuff for them. They're our main client, and then we kind of do fillers with everybody else across campus. We don't do a whole lot outside of the university. We do, but it's usually a partnership with an organization on the campus.
Right. That makes sense. I feel like when I went to college, I was in the business school, and we kind of had the equivalent with the event center that would host all the business events that we'd go to. So I hear what you mean there.
Yeah, except I don't remember it. Rachel remembers it, but
it's a little more recent for me. That's all.
Shut up.
But how has the pandemic directly affected events that you had scheduled? Have you had to reschedule different events? Sadly, I know it's obviously impacted everyone everywhere, unfortunately, but like, was it challenging for rescheduling? Did you have unhappy clients? Were people understanding? What was that experience like dealing with the pandemic?
I think because we were part of the Bush School, and my boss, the dean of the Bush School that I report to, basically mandated across the entire school that everything was moving to virtual. So it was really easy for us, with at least all of them, to transition and say, hey, we can't host this. Plus the provost came to us and, you're doing classes this semester, so we really didn't have a choice in that. So they were going to get canceled no matter what. Most didn't try to really reschedule. We had a couple that rescheduled for the summer, thinking that maybe the spring would be in the same boat, which we are. We didn't really deal with anyone who was upset by it. I think everybody anticipated that was going to be the case.
Yeah. Well, you don't deal with weddings, I guess. So that's probably why you didn't have any upset customers.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could, but as long as I'm here, we won't.
We don't have a dance floor. We can't do it.
We don't have a dance floor. And really, if someone wanted to do a wedding here, you're looking at probably 50 people if we had to bring it. It's just not as large as, a grand ballroom that they have on main campus.
Right.
It's not really ideal. We're not really near a hotel. There's not a ton of food about, like, around where our complex is. But I just, I don't want to deal with the bride and her mother.
Don't blame you.
Yeah.
I do not blame you. I actually hate organizing weddings so much that I ended up not liking my wedding planner because she was so up my butt, and I was like, I don't need your help. But it came, like, my space came with a wedding planner, so I was like, okay, but I don't need your help. I need you to stop.
Can I have that portion of whatever % you're giving her and give it back?
Yeah, and put it towards the open bar. That would be much better. Thanks. That's so true.
Okay, so that was great feedback. And I'm glad that you haven't had to deal with anyone and too bad, and people have been understanding. But so you obviously have talked about on your podcast how you've transitioned the space mostly for classes right now. So could you tell us how that has looked, and tell our listeners what the sanitation looks like, what the setup is, kind of how that flow looks now with the conference center turning into hosting classes for the students?
I'll let you take
Or is that a loaded question?
There's so much.
I had to do that. They don't like the setup that we had to do. Apparently none of them are equipped to do it, even though they've been trained on it. I don't know how much time.
Uh-oh.
Well, okay, so it wasn't a workshop setup, a true workshop, which was I'm thankful for. But for our banquet space, it's a lot of 6x18s and 6x30s just set up in rows. Everything is, I think, 5 to 6 feet apart.
Well, face to face is 6 feet apart.
Yes, face to face is 6 foot. And then obviously the tables are 6 foot, so you strategically place chairs. Sanitation, we sanitize between every class. We have to go in and sanitize all of the AV equipment that professors are using. Our custodial staff come in and do I don't know if it's a chlorine fog between every with the sprayer.
Yeah. Okay.
We have sanitation stations set up in the back of the room, so if somebody comes in and they want to re-sanitize the space that they're going to be in, they're more than welcome to. Sanitizing the door handles and just everything. So we try to stay pretty thorough about it. We try to catch it between every classes. Thankfully, the professors have been good enough to, some of them bring their own Clorox wipes, and they're like, well, we're just going to re-sanitize it after you, which is great. I mean, at this point, the safer, the better.
Right.
My favorite part is still having to inform people that, just like posted on the exterior of our building, we're still required to wear masks in publicly shared places.
Oh boy.
Yes. I've been asked several times if I was a student and why I was asking them. Like, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
But no, I work here.
Put on your mask.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the signages, I mean, our marketing manager, Jamie, has been great developing all of the guidelines and signage and everything to put on the building and map out where the herds are supposed to walk and what sides
they follow it. Or is it like when you go to the grocery store and no one follows the lines?
Nobody follows it.
They're teenagers. They think they know everything. so,
Right. Yeah, but what about the adults in like the supermarket who just walk right towards you going the opposite direction? I'm like, if I have 2 kids with me and I'm doing it, then you should really be able to do it on your own.
Yes.
Yeah, to go against the man, right? Nobody wants to follow the rules. Yeah. Well, our auditorium setup is TJ, how long did it take you this time to put the yeah. So we have
3
colored
days.
dots on
3 days. It took me
So
3 days
our-
to put color coordinated dots
Oh God.
on our auditorium seats.
So a certain time of the day when class happens, they have to sit in a specific color. So it's either red, yellow, or blue. And the provost office came up with this ingenious idea in these little vinyl dots that don't actually really stick to the seats very well. But yeah, I think it took Michael and I want to say at least 4 hours to do both of them. And then it took you, what, 3 days to do it again after the holiday break?
It took me 3 days because I had to wait for stickers. Okay, like
That is true. Yeah.
I ran out of stickers.
That sounds pretty awful though. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it was.
There was a pattern that I had to follow, and with how our seating is divided, it wasn't working out. Like you were still getting colored stickers that were back to back. So then I had to go through and like rearrange. It was not fun. It was not. It was terrible.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me that when my son's in kindergarten and they opened his school. I mean, they've closed 10 times since they opened it because of people getting sick, but he's in school currently. And when they were setting everything up, because he was remote for like the first 2 months, and when they were setting everything up, I said to my husband, I was like, they should just send me in there because an event manager could get this done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it took them like 2 weeks, which is, I get it. It's fine. But like, it was just funny. I was like, they should just send an event manager in there and have them do it. 3 days is a lot less.
And an event manager, Chick-fil-A manager.
Yeah. Any general manager from anywhere from McDonald's all the way up into, a large conference center. Yeah, I agree. Anyone in the hospitality industry, a server, literally anyone actually would probably.
Well, I don't know, because you've seen pictures, the servers they have to follow direction from somebody. So we still have issues there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. It's different everywhere, I guess. It's funny because you guys are, you're in the South, we're in the Northeast. But I feel like it's the same everywhere. It's the same issues, no matter where you go. Maybe Florida might have a few more issues than anywhere else, but I digress. Possibly.
That's fair.
So on your podcast, Coffee Talk, you really discuss event trends and strategies that have been relevant during the past few months as the entire industry has been forced to adapt to, new ways of doing everything. So first, let's talk about event types, because I really, really enjoyed that episode. The first one, you have 2 episodes, I know, that you talk about event types. The first episode that you talk about, it was episode 4. And you threw down some serious event industry knowledge and terminology, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you later kind of recategorized the terms in episode 10, I think, right? And because I think that they kind of merged, and we continue to learn about things, obviously, months later. Yeah. So the first was like when you guys were talking about episode 4, virtual events versus digital events, which I was so confused because I was like, oh yeah, they're the same thing. But the definitions like obviously aren't really white and black. They're, kind of merged. But what are some of the differences between the two? Or did you find out later that there are no differences between the two?
Yeah, so I recently did the Virtual Events Institute certification program. It's based out of London or England somewhere. I can't remember. But so they break it down. Digital was a term that was thrown out when the traditional, like virtual in the very beginning, was just a virtual meeting. So you're literally just getting on like Zoom call and doing a virtual meeting. So there's not a whole lot going back and forth. And then digital, I started hearing a lot more on the West Coast, mostly like Vegas. A lot of people talk, everything's bigger in Vegas and a lot more. So that's where I first started hearing a lot more of that. And people started using digital because there's such a negative context behind virtual. Yeah. But the reality of it is everything falls underneath the term virtual. It's just how you break down what you're doing. So like a webinar is still a virtual event, but it's a type of event. Same thing with like doing a live stream, or as I'm sure TJ will explain what Hub and Spoke is because it's like her favorite. the breakouts, the meetings, the round tables, the people who do like the exhibition halls, which for academic side, it's poster sessions, those kinds of things. So they all fall underneath virtual. Digital, I think, was just a term used a lot in the beginning because people just didn't want to use virtual because, it's just another virtual event. Like people weren't signing up for things. They weren't getting, the attendance and what they needed as far as what their investment was. So there is a lot of overlap, but I think digital also for some people is what more are you bringing to the table? What more technology are you looping into all of this, and how can you make it even better than just a standard virtual meeting? I think that's where digital came from, because people were using other, AV technology or apps to bring, and so it was more of a digital event because there's more layers to it than just doing a typical virtual event. But yes, it's still super confusing.
I feel like, so the Christmas, normally we do a huge holiday party for our company. And obviously this year it was virtual, but we did use a ton of other like softwares. Rachel, you helped set it all up. What was the software where we were like playing inside a world, basically?
It's called Gather Town or Gather Town. And everyone has like a little icon that's kind of your person, and you can your avatar, and then you kind of literally use your arrow keys on your computer and you can walk around, and then your face will pop up when you get closest to people. So if we were all walking around, you would see our 4 faces and you could talk to each other, which we thought was so fun. So we would walk around and you'd run into like this person on this team or this person on this team from the company. I thought it was really cool, and you could really engage. And then there was a chat, and then we also did a wine tasting in that platform. So you could spotlight the people that you wanted to spotlight. So we had the man from the wine company who was doing the wine tasting spotlighted on the front, so everyone could see him. You didn't have to be close enough to him, but I don't know, it was really creative, and I felt like it was it was different than just using Zoom or
because we use Big Marker, right? We use Big Marker a lot because we're just also sick of Zoom. That Big Marker, I feel like, adds a little bit more. You guys,
I hate Zoom.
We all hate. So we're on Zoom right now.
No, but it is what it is. I mean, it's good for like a simple meeting, but like if you're going to have a lot of people, you want to interact with a ton of people, it's like the worst platform ever.
It is. And we do social hours. We try to get our customers to network with each other, and we were doing them on Zoom, and we've just started like talking about moving them over to Big Market because it's just like, it's awkward. It's the functionality isn't there. It's basically just a meeting it's like a work meeting, whereas it's certainly not like a fun event or experience, which we'll get to. But I want to talk about that hub and spoke method, because I've honestly never heard about it, and I think I would have like referred to it before I listened to your podcast as a hybrid event, but this is more like hybrid, like on crack, I feel like.
Steroids.
That's why TJ likes it.
So it's more, right? I like the bigger
crack plus.
So basically it is. That's all it is it's a hybrid event on crack, where you say you have an event in Vegas and it's hybrid, you're going to do it virtual, but you set up in maybe bigger cities, Boston, Austin, San Francisco, where you might book a hotel or a conference center or just a space and have it retrofitted and set up with AV to be able to attend the event virtually. And then people can gather there that are also registered for that event. So in our facility, we work with the Presidential Library, and they have a lot of their educational events set up like that, where they host the event in person and different schools will attend it. But they also have it set up where children or classrooms in other areas can log in to also attend the event, and they can be a part of it. They can ask their questions, they can listen, they can respond to the speakers. So that's all it is. But it was labeled hub and spoke, and
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We're going to use that.
Yeah, you have your, like on a wheel, you have your hub in the center and then your spokes where it just branches off, but you're all connected. That's the only thing that I can rationalize that they figured out how to call it that.
It does make sense though. I like the wheel. I like the wheel
Yeah.
analogy because it makes sense. I think it's I feel like we had spoken at Triple Seat about doing something like this we do a conference every year called Event Camp. And normally it's like we'll do one East Coast, one West Coast. But this year I
Not in
think
the South.
yeah. We did one in Nashville last year. Last year?
South.
God, when was
Not
that?
far, yeah, not far enough.
It's not the South. I know. I
The dirty
drove there.
South down here.
So funny story, sidetrack, funny story. It's not the South because I drove there from Boston because I was pregnant and my doctor told me I couldn't fly because I had like some like stupid complications, but like I could drive there. So I drove to Nashville. So no, it's not the South because it didn't take that long. Like 15 hours, I think. I forget. My boss wanted to kill me. But
That's like a drive to Amarillo.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's totally fine. I stopped a lot. But yeah, with event camp, we were thinking we wanted to do we were calling it hybrid, but now I'm totally going to call it this hub and spoke because then we could have people on the West Coast, people in the South, people in the Northeast actually in venues, and then add in the virtual aspect of it. It's a great idea. We'll have to get with our event planner, Rachel.
I know.
Her name's also Rachel.
She's gonna hate you. She's gonna
I
be
know.
like, hi.
She loves stuff like this. I think she'd love it.
Yeah. See, well, that's why I like it because it adds the levels, the different levels, and then it gets more complicated and more chaotic. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, she loves that. She was a corporate event planner forever, so I think she loves the complicated and like putting out the fires sort of situations. So she'd love that.
Yeah.
It's okay. So then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, like regarding events and event terminology, was the change of like virtual events now being called virtual experiences, because I feel like this whole experience factor before COVID was like a huge trend in events, like no more boring events, like like have an experience and like make it. We did an article. We have a magazine that we put out like every quarter, and we did a whole article or a whole section on like why you should like move to not virtual, to experiences rather than just like plain old events. So it was interesting to hear about like the virtual experience when you guys were talking about it. Can you like explain a little more about that?
Well, I think most of the people, when they attend events, I mean, TJ and I talk frequently about like virtual fatigue and what comes along with the amount of events that there are. So now people who are hosting events are really having to think outside the box on what these people are going to get in return for attending. How can they amp it up? How can they keep the engagement going instead of boring people? They have more of ability to log off and get off the event at any point versus when you're live, you walk out of a room, it's kind of disruptive. Other people see you, whereas now with virtual, you can turn your camera off and no one has no idea if you're there or not. So I think it's just they've upped the ante. Like you have to give people more, attendees more. They want more. They want to engage more. They want it to be more worth their time. So these experiences have to be really thought out and planned and organized, very, creatively, so that way it keeps the people engaged. If not, you're going to lose them at the beginning, and then it creates that, virtual fatigue. But yeah, virtual events is just, there's so much. As you guys heard, and as we constantly educate ourselves on, there's so many different things that can be done with virtual. And now, since people are like, we've been home like a year now, almost, we're getting to that point where people are wanting more, like, they're tired of sitting at home. They have to change what they're doing. And so if you don't create a, positive and very uplifting or engaging experience, people just aren't going to do it. And less is more.
Yeah.
Right. You guys definitely referenced the quality versus quantity of events and how during the pandemic, people have just been wanting to put things out there and just have more events just to have them. But I definitely agree. And having that experience factor, I feel like plays into upping the quality of the event itself. So more on one event is better than too many smaller, not as much effort put into events.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going to have a lot of smaller events, just combine them.
Yeah.
It's true.
Or if you notice that another group is hosting an event that's very similar to the event that you're going to host, partner.
Yeah. It's smart.
I was together.
No need for so many. I was laughing pretty hard though when you guys were talking about how one of like a virtual experience had like started with a yoga class.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Was that WEC, TJ?
That was WEC. And like several others that we've looked at the schedule for and go, never mind.
Oh,
No yoga, no HIIT class.
yeah, no, I'm good.
I'm okay.
Well, don't start the day that way. I mean, it's
Right.
It's like after lunch so people don't fall asleep. But I'm paying for what? For my first session to be yoga? No, I don't want to stretch. I got out of bed and stretched and got my coffee. That's as far as it is.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I do think like they can be fun later in the day, like you said, but not first thing in the morning. Like, hey, here's a bunch of people you don't know. Want to do yoga with them?
Yeah.
No, but you know, also I'm sure there's people out there that are all for that. Give a second option.
Yeah.
Right?
You know?
Yep.
For
Or maybe
send a
us,
bagel in the mail like we
yeah, like can you send a bagel in the mail for me? That'd be great. Like,
that's what
I
we did.
want.
We
Yeah.
did that for the holiday party. It was from Brooklyn, bagels and cream cheese, and that's how we started.
Good.
Way
That's
better.
perfect.
Yeah.
I ate like 3. So it was that.
I sign up to be on that.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
go on the mailing list.
Oh, that's funny. You talked a little bit about virtual networking events too. And like I said before, we've hosted quite a few online networking events in the past year. We used to do them in person. We called them party people events, and we travel to different markets and host our customers and some prospects as well, and have them network in, at a bar with cocktails, food, whatever. Obviously we can't do that now. So we've been trying to do them online. We were doing them for a while, like once a week. And it was more for people to just vent, about what's going on. But then, like you said, the less is more. We realized that it was just too much. So we were doing we went down to, what was it, like once every 2 weeks, Rachel, first, and then once a month. And then we stopped for a while altogether, and we just started doing them again. And they're like once every 6 weeks. But we've definitely had some success with them because some customers love them. And we've also had some moments we'd like to forget and really, really long silences and just and basically it just ended up being 5 CCC people talking about events and not any of our customers just sitting there listening. So do you have advice for people who are trying to host virtual networking events, or even tips for people who are joining in as a customer or who's trying to network with other people virtually?
Don't do it.
I loved how you guys were talking about it on your episodes. It was fun.
Yeah, I was laughing at that one too, because I was like, oh my God, this is us. We deal with this all the time.
I don't like
how do we make them
networking.
better? It's yeah.
TJ's she's our networking person. She could talk to a wall. I'm not really great at it because I just, I always comment, you probably heard her episodes. I don't really like a lot of people, so I don't really know how I even ended up in this industry. So it's really hard for me to go into a room with 100 people and just talk to somebody. So yeah, TJ, that's her biggest thing. She wants to be able to network, and I mean, that's all you. I have no earthly idea how you do.
I just like talking to people, and especially now, with COVID going around, you don't get to see a lot of people. I will talk to the most random, I will talk to a 3-year-old. I'm not even shy. Does this 3-year-old want to know about, I don't know, anything? I will educate you. You want to talk about dinosaurs? We can talk about dinosaurs. But I enjoy in-person networking. Virtual networking has definitely been a switch, and it's not for the wallflower. It's not for somebody that can't forcibly put themselves out there. My best advice is, if you are that type of person, have your talking points, have your rehearse your opening line if you want to, whether it's an anecdote, a joke, something about yourself that somebody might find interesting, to just start the conversation. The y'all's Christmas party, the little virtual world stuff, that would be awesome. If every virtual networking was like that, I think I would like that even more, because you're more likely to be able to read somebody oh, hey, they look like they're open to a conversation, versus they look like they're having a bad day. I'm gonna go talk to them. But you can kind of prepare yourself for how you're going to approach somebody if you can see their body language or how they're interacting with other people. Virtual is just so much harder. And if you're not quick to jump in there, now you're 5 seconds behind the conversation and they're way ahead of you.
and you're like holding on to that one point you wanted to make, but it's like
Yes.
past it, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah.
Lost my
Yeah,
chance.
you're good at networking. What are you talking
Let's circle
about?
back to this. I want to talk about this some more.
Right.
And everybody's like, no, we're not doing that.
I think I am. Yeah, I think I'm probably with TJ. I really enjoy marketing. I mean, networking. It's like my jam. I don't know why. I just like to talk to people too.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I just like to talk.
Yeah. I feel like I'm chock full of
I'm just
useless
not good.
information.
Well, yeah, see,
Yeah.
and I'm not that way, and I'm not good at the small talk. Like, if you want to talk about something that I'm interested in, and that you want to talk about like this kind of stuff that I have a lot of experience with, sure. But to just say, hey, how are you? Maybe you have kids? Yeah.
No, we don't ask that. We're not supposed to ask that question anymore.
Oh, really? Is that like a thing?
You're not supposed to ask that question.
Only when you're interviewing somebody.
About now, because there's like kids home, kids, remote learning. When I kill myself because of my
It's an
kids.
instant connection that I'm not part of.
I know, poor Rachel. All I do is bitch all day, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That stinks. I have this plant I have to take care of."
Yeah.
It's okay though. The plant, you won't get arrested if the plant doesn't eat for a week. Like, it's
Exactly.
fine.
It's fine, totally fine. You don't need to water it.
I'll live without it too.
Yeah. You'll survive.
Yeah, that's just my tip. Is just be prepared. Almost like going in for an interview. Just kind of have your talking points and say, hey, like, do you know a goldfish only has a memory span of 3 seconds? How neat is that? And then you're either that crazy goldfish lady for the rest of the event, or you've started a conversation with somebody that has an aquarium. Like,
you never know.
How it could go. That's funny.
I'm gonna use that one.
Kate and I were talking about what you referenced it briefly before, but how that experimental event and how just hilarious that was and ridiculous at the same time, with the lack of social distancing, the plexiglass that you guys kept making the jokes about it. Like, what is it not supposed to go above your face to actually, prevent from germs? And we just thought it was so funny that was actually even posted as well. And you critiqued it in that one episode of yours. So we just shout that out.
Yeah, I was dying. When you posted the picture, I was like, wait, the first thing I thought was like, wait a minute. First of all, the chef isn't even wearing a full mask. Second of all, the plexiglass is like up to his chest, not even. It's like his stomach. Who is that? Who is that like protecting? No one.
Was that the one that was outside? The buffet was set up outside?
Yeah, yes.
And that was TJ's argument. Well, it's outside. I'm like, okay, so air only goes down. I mean,
yes. Right on top of the food.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, Sarah says it all the time, where if you don't want it documented, don't put it online.
No,
right. If you don't want it out there forever, don't put it online, because even if that article had only been posted for a day, somebody somewhere has screenshot it.
Right. It's a bad look.
Somebody is us.
Someone like you. Yeah, we'll have to link that episode so our listeners can hear what we're referencing. But
we see it so often. Like, it's not even that. It's not like that was a one-off.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it around town. I walked into a boutique the other day that had like a cheese platter out on display for you to take samples of. It was not covered.
Like, what is
just out there in the open. And I'm just like,
here, have some COVID cheese.
Yeah, like, it's fine. It's cheese. It doesn't like cheese. So we see it, and I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just don't understand, like, do people not care? Do they not understand the guidelines? Maybe they should ask somebody. What were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, and if they don't know, should they be running an event at a hotel? Like, that just doesn't seem like that's the right place for them to be if they're not taking the time to do the research and figure out. I also was laughing because you said that it should be how much taller than the tallest person behind it? It was like half a foot or something.
Yeah, I think it was like 6 to 8 inches.
Okay. And I was laughing because I was like, that's tall. Like, that's really tall. So like, that guy was like 6'2".
So, and if that's the case, if you can't get plexiglass that's any taller than that, well, guess what? Everybody under 5 foot is going to be working on that buffet line.
Yeah.
You're going to have to start choosing by height.
Yeah. All kind of labor laws.
Right.
Well, or like maybe buffet is just like not the best idea during COVID.
No, which is the other, like, get creative. Like, why are these caterers not getting more creative? And I know we've we've talked about it in some of our episodes where we have seen caterers in other states that are really jumping on board with trying to figure out how they can still do buffets or how they can still, revamp the boxed lunch.
Yeah.
And we've seen some really great options out there, but some people just aren't putting in the effort. And it's
Yeah.
kind of sad.
I agree. We have a lot of customers who have come up with some really cool ideas for events, catered events, in whether they're catering them with staff or, just the opposite of just delivering the food. But there are a lot of those like gourmet box lunch ideas, like
The
even box
bento
dinners, like
boxes.
bento boxes. Yeah, it's neat how they've pivoted for sure. But yeah, just throwing out a buffet with a 2-foot plexiglass in front of you is probably not the best idea. Nope.
Well, on that note, so you guys, everyone listening will have to look at Coffee Talk so you can actually listen to that episode and see what we're referencing with that joke. But speaking of Coffee Talk, you guys started that during the pandemic to talk about what you guys have been doing at the conference center and on the campus, helping with the students and classes and everything in the events industry. So what's the plan moving forward for the spring, and what do you have on coming up, and what does the future hold with Coffee Talk and the content that you'll be putting out there with it?
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for that one. I was waiting for that.
It's the future. So this was Sarah's idea. This is Sarah's baby.
I don't know.
She gets to take lead on this one.
Well, it started out originally like almost a year ago. I wanted to do some sort of like director's corner thing, like a quick video on our website or our social media pages, just to let people know what we're going on in the facility. Because we still, even though we do a lot of stuff in our building, there are still a ton of people on this campus that have never even heard of our building. And so we were just trying to find ways to engage, a little bit more of the student body audience. And so I started thinking, well, let's do a director's corner. And then when that started evolving, we started talking about LinkedIn. And then it just kind of evolved to when TJ first started working here, one of the things that somebody commented on was like, if they just put a camera on the two of you and followed y'all around, you should have your own talk show, because the stuff that flies out of our mouths and the things that we talk about is probably not work appropriate, but it is pretty entertaining for the rest of the staff. So then it turned into, well, we have some time. Maybe we should try the podcast. Because TJ and I talked about it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, but it was just supposed to be like a podcast, like voice recordings.
Yeah,
Right.
But see, the thing is in order, you can hear a lot in the audio, but when people who know TJ and I, a lot of our interaction is very facial expression. So even when you watch the episodes, like she gives me the stupid blank stare that drives me nuts because I don't know what she's thinking. Or, I have a tendency to roll my eyes at her. And, you can't always see that through an audio podcast. But, this semester we've definitely shifted to more of the audio. And Jamie is wonderful. And since she's moved into a marketing position, she's definitely taken on the whole animation and she wants to run with it, come up with our own cartoon and everything. And TJ are like, okay, whatever you want to do. But as far as the future, I think we'll always do this to some degree. We definitely enjoy having, guests on the show. We've hosted one of our students. Our associate dean of the academics for the Bush School has been on twice, I think now.
Well, he was in costume one time, so you couldn't really tell.
He was in our Halloween episode where we did a live episode, which was entertaining. But he's pretty fun. And I don't think we'll ever, unless one of us leaves, I don't know that we'll ever stop doing it, just because I do enjoy it. It's definitely been nice to educate people, enlighten people, as TJ says, especially clients that we deal with, because a lot of them, we send a lot of information, and as you guys were saying, you haven't heard of certain terms. Half of them haven't even heard of like 3/4 of those terms. It's just amazing to me that they could plan events, but yet they truly don't know the industry that they're even in. So I think it's nice. It gives people an idea of what we're doing, and I can't speak for TJ. It's fun for me. I think I give TJ more anxiety by doing this.
She does stress me out.
I only did that once, and that was when we did a random, because I don't even remember what we were talking about. That one day, something really pissed me off, and so I really wanted to talk about it. It was probably catering.
It happens.
It's happened to us before.
Okay.
That's literally like,
it's her trigger is catering.
That's so funny because that's like,
and
it's like what we're pushing.
Right.
Yeah. But like Triple C now was like pushing catering because there's really no other types of events, like in-person events happening right now. So I feel like every blog post I've been writing and like every podcast episode we do is talk about catering.
But there's nothing wrong with it. I think, I just like I've worked in catering. I've seen the higher level of catering. I'm just so incredibly disappointed with the service that we see here because we are supposed to be a higher end facility. We don't do anything on compostable. Everything in our building has to be on China. Like it's just supposed to be that way. And so when you have a high level event and even a chef doesn't show up, that's when I have an issue because it's your food. You haven't tasted the presentation. You don't even know what it looks like. You're trusting the front of house people who you obviously haven't trained, which I don't blame them. They're doing the best they can with the very little training they've received from back of house. So it's just, yes, it is. TJ is correct. It is a big trigger for me, which was dubbed the Dragon Lady for my apparent high level of expectation for these catered events, but it's just, I don't know. There's an expectation. They're paying for a higher level of service and they should receive it. That's just
Well, I think it's
couldn't
good
agree
to have
more.
that opinion, and then you can share that, and people can hopefully take something from it and maybe do better next time.
Yeah, I don't think
Spread the word.
Yeah.
There's no hope.
But a lot of times the clients don't see that they're not getting the higher level. Like we see it, so we catch it before the client's even aware of it.
And it hurts sometimes too, like that so much about the industry because you've worked in it for so long that you're seeing things that people who've never worked in the hospitality industry would never notice. Do you know what I mean? And I find that even going into a restaurant, that there's things that I'm like, I notice things that are happening like, in like back of the house. And I'm like, what? Why am I like, take my mind? I don't work here. Let it go. But if it's affecting like, your business, then that's a whole different story. So, yeah.
Well, and the common saying is, when people go to events, the one thing they will always remember is the food, whether it was bad or good. So if you support your client and get them to ensure that experience is good for their guests, then that's a positive. But I mean, we've had too many events where that's the first thing. Well, I don't want to use that caterer because it was so awful last year. I'm like, well, they have a different chef.
Or we don't want to use that caterer because 7 years ago, it was bad.
Right.
No one forgets.
Yeah. Never.
My steak was overcooked. Well, it was catering.
Wasn't me. If it was me, it'd still be mooing on the plate. So.
Oh God.
I'd love to end on the tips question. So I feel like we should do this last one to wrap up. But I mean, I feel like you guys have learned so much through your experiences with your roles and how you've had to pivot during the pandemic. And then you've also been doing lots of your own trainings and learning about the industry to stay up to date with everything. So the final question, if you have 3 tips that you could give to another conference center trying to make use of their space during this time, what would those tips be?
Get creative with your layouts, with your distancing. Just that's one of the projects that I've been working on is getting creative with room layouts. What can we fit? How can we make it still be functional and look nice and follow safety code? Get creative.
It's a good one.
I would say at least make sure you have, at minimum, depending on the size of your staff, one person who is up to date on all of the AV stuff, everything that they're offering platform wise, any apps or software that you're looking at least have one person dedicated to that. So when we hopefully come back face to face soon, you'll have all those things already built into your facility that it's easier transition for you versus trying to, on the fly, figure out how to do it for an event once you get back with your doors open. But there's a lot out there. So as long as you have somebody who's constantly researching and educating themselves, I think you'll be ahead of the game more so than anybody.
That's a great tip because we at Triple C have this whenever we host events. The CEO always loves to say that AV can ruin an event. Like a great event can be completely ruined because of AV. So we're big proponents of knowing the AV systems, or like, if you're the one hosting an event somewhere else, like hiring someone who knows what they're doing. So that nothing, because it really can. I mean, it doesn't matter how big the event is or what it is. Like if there's AV involved, it can just ruin it.
All it takes is one bad cable.
Yeah. Or not the right cable, or like, I thought you bought that
cable.
connector. Yeah, we've been through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3.
I would say, I mean, the only thing I would say is just make sure you keep an open mind and stay flexible. I mean, we unfortunately don't have 100% control over how our fee structure is built. It's an approved fee structure through the president's office. So we can, make discounts here and there, things that we need to do as far as our base structure. So like if you are a facility that has control over that, be flexible, be understanding. I've heard a lot of planners talk about how they're paying for, more space, but for less people, and it's like not within their budget. Well, I get it, but you're also having to occupy because you still want to hit that level of attendee. So you have to understand that there's going to be additional fees. So if facilities can keep in mind that their budget hasn't changed. In fact, it might be smaller than it was before. So if you can be flexible or somehow, as we talk about less is more, maybe having less people at your event with more content, more one-on-ones, with the speakers, things like that, to help really give them, a bang for their buck versus, no, we have to do this, you have to do it this way, it's black and white, whatever the case may be. I think just being flexible and open-minded, that everybody right now is struggling and we just need to get events going again. So have,
Right.
some support there and keeping that at the forefront when you're doing this stuff. But other than that,
That's pretty good tip, Sarah.
Huh? That was a good tip. Yeah.
Great.
Are you trying to tell me something? I need to change my ways around here?
No, those were great.
Right? Didn't you just book one for like February something?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good.
yeah?
Yeah, it's exciting. Like
Wow.
60 people, but it's exciting. Yes.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
a big deal.
Our first one of the year.
Well, yeah, and then
Hopefully
you had
there's-
that one in December, and that was the first one we'd had since August. So
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways.
Well, yay.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear. It's very nice to hear, especially, in the business that Rachel and I are in. It's nice to hear that people are hosting some events face to face.
Well, if you research anything about Vegas, they haven't slowed down.
Oh.
So if you really want to go to an event, go to Vegas.
We know we have a lot of our clients from Vegas will join those like networking events. And a lot of times they're just like sort of bitching about what's going on because they don't want to, they don't want the event managers don't want to be doing it and their staff's getting sick and and they've been cycling through those, like we're hosting events and then like shut down and we're hosting events and then like everything shut down again. It's just, and no one they deal with is from Vegas. So it's like just bringing in all these people from other places and they're not happy about it. But I sort of feel bad because it's almost like I want to make the money. I don't want to be furloughed, but I also don't want to get sick and get my family sick. And, so it's, but I agree. Vegas is Vegas. It's like its own country. Just put a big bubble over Vegas.
You should, yeah.
It might be safer that way.
Honestly.
I don't know. They predicted that in that Simpsons movie too. They put the dome over the town. It was fine.
Yep. Simpsons have predicted everything, literally everything that's happened in the past like 10 years. So
The writers were time travelers.
they really were. I think they were, or are for that matter. You want to wrap it up, Rach?
Yeah.
I feel like
I started. Okay. I mean, I think that we covered so many great things today and we really, really appreciate you coming on to join us. So thank you so much for attending and coming on as our guest today. We love having a little double guest situation going on here. So we appreciate having both of you. And then to our listeners, you can check out Coffee Talk. We'll link the link to your YouTube channel, which is where we watch all the episodes in our episode description. So everyone can check that out. And when do you think you'll have your first episode for the new season coming up?
It's already live
We
today.
went live today.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yay.
that.
Well, we'll have
You'll
to
actually
watch
get
it.
to hear all about catering on that one.
Can't wait.
If you want to follow up on Sarah's opinions on catering, then check out episode 1 of their newest season.
Well, we'll have to have you guys on again after you've had after things are more normal and see how like the reopening of everything went. And,
Yeah, I'd love that.
we had
Yeah,
fun
we'll be in
today.
touch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of 2 Chicks, 3 Seats.
Your events industry podcast, brought to you by Triple Seat, the industry leader for event management software.
Find out more about Triple Seat at tripleseat.com.